So we have our cooked up data for our conservation of momentum lab. We have in our first column initial velocity of cart 1, and our final velocity of both carts is in the second column. I want to plot a graph now of final velocity versus initial velocity. To do that, I'm going to highlight everything, including the headings, all your data and the headings. And then I want to go up here to insert chart. Now, the chart that comes up automatically will either be a line graph or a bar graph. You don't want either one of those. You want a scatter plot. And in fact, you're going to want a scatter plot in every graph that you plot this year. Just about every lab you do involves a graph, and every graph that you plot is going to be a scatter plot. So on the right-hand side here where it says customize, we're going to, under setup I should say, we're going to select where it says column chart and switch it to down here where it says scatter chart. Now that data looks great. Your data probably isn't going to be quite as perfect as that, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a perfect straight line as long as it resembles a straight line. Now, notice that mine has automatically been titled and my axes have automatically been labeled as well. There is a new version of Google Sheets within the last week or two. Every time I've tried it with this new version, it automatically titles it correctly and automatically labels the axes correctly. Okay, with the previous version, we found that sometimes it would label it and sometimes it wouldn't. I don't know if it's going to label it every time for you or not. In the times that I've tried it, it has, but I don't know that it will necessarily every time. It's your responsibility to label things. If it labels it for you, great, you get a break. If it doesn't label it for you, or it labels it incorrectly, say initial velocity versus final velocity, then it's your responsibility to change it to final versus initial. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does it for you. If it doesn't, it's your responsibility to fix it. Now, some of you might, when you plot this graph, get two sets of data like this, or so it seems, two sets of data like this. For whatever reason, Google Sheets will sometimes do that and sometimes do it with one. If it does this with two sets of data, a blue one and a red one, I want you to make sure that this box down here under setup says use column A as labels is checked. Sometimes it's automatically checked and sometimes it's not automatically checked. You need to make sure it's checked in order to have only the one set of dots there. Now, it's time to plot out a trend line. This is clearly a straight line graph, so I'm going to plot a linear trend line. I'm going to go under Customize, where it says Series. Customize Series. Now I'm going to scroll down, and you're going to see a box right here where it says Trend Line. The default will be a linear trend line, and that's what you're going to plot in this particular lab. Now, the default is also a blue trend line. That's fine in this lab. But if you happen to have a lot of data points, you might want to change the color to make it easier to see. I'm going to do that here. Change it to red. I want to make it a little bit thicker as well, maybe 4 points. Maybe make it a little bit darker. Change the opacity to 100%. Okay, that's a good trend line. I can see it. I can see my data points. Looks good. The only thing that I have to do now is to show myself or display the equation, which is going to provide me with the slope and the y-intercept. If I scroll down from within Customize Series even further, I'm going to see a box that says Label. Don't click Show R Squared. That should be blank always in every lab we do. The label that you want to pick in every lab we do is Use Equation. Don't click Custom. Never click Custom. Click Use Equation. You can see now at the top of the graph, it says 0.5x plus 0. What's the slope of this graph? 0.5. And what's the y-intercept? 0. Now, if you take a look at this graph, it doesn't look like it goes through the origin, right? It looks like there is a y-intercept there, right? Can anybody explain to me why it's telling me the y-intercept is 0 when it's not going through the origin there? There is a reason, and this is correct. The y-intercept is 0. But how is it correct when it doesn't look like it's going through the y-axis? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't have any points on 0. That's right. But this trend line still should go through 0, 0. Yeah, but it shouldn't matter if I have an initial velocity of 0 meters per second. The trend line still should go through the origin. Connor? Yeah, notice the graph isn't starting at 2 here, or at 0. Look, my intervals are 2, 4, 6. This is half of that, so it's starting at 1. If we went, and you could fix that, but it's okay if you don't fix it. If you started at 0, 0, 0 for a y-axis, 0 for the x-axis, then that would go through exactly through the origin. But if you're starting at 1 for the x-axis, well, it still goes through the origin. It just doesn't appear to be going through the origin because the origin isn't there. It's not on the graph. Does that make sense? Don't panic about that. Hey, slope of this graph 0.5, the y-intercept is 0. So just like we said in the analysis yesterday, you can drop that y-intercept because it's 0. For you guys, it probably won't be 0, but compared to the numbers on the y-axis, it'll likely be pretty close to 0. Now, the only other thing you got to do is copy this into your Google Doc now, the template that I gave you for completing this lab. And that's pretty easy. All you're going to do is click these 3 dots in the top right-hand corner, click copy chart. Then you're going to go into your Google Doc. I'll create a Google Doc here. You guys, of course, have your template that's already been created for you. When I create that Google Doc, all I'm going to do is go into that, select the place that I want to put it, and then right-click, or go Control-V, which is paste. When I do that, it gives me the option of linking to the spreadsheet. The nice thing about that, of linking to the spreadsheet, is if I go back and make a change to my graph for whatever reason, it's going to automatically change in my doc. I don't need to recopy and repaste.